In today's Mystery of Black History, we highlight A.G. Gaston. Poor and possessing only a 10th grade education, Arthur George Gaston not only built the city of Birmingham throughout the 1900s, but he built himself into a man of great strength, intelligence, and importance. Black Titan, A.G. Gaston and the Making of a Black Millionaire was originally published in 2004, written by Gaston's niece and grandniece, Carol Jenkins and Elizabeth Gardner Hines. A.G. was born in small-town Demopolis, Alabama on July 4, 1892. His family was hardworking and respected throughout the town, specifically his grandparents Joe and Idella Gaston. They owned their land and worked daily for their keep. A.G.'s dad was hardworking in the grueling and dangerous railroad industry and would die early in A.G.'s life. His mother would then go back and forth between Birmingham looking for work and then ultimately moved herself and A.G. to Birmingham permanently. A.G.'s mother Rosie was no slouch. She turned being a servant in wealthy white homes into her own catering company. With her mother's connection and Birmingham's lack of proper education for black children, A.G. was sent to the Tuggle Institute, ran by Granny Tuggle. The institute had a prominent supporter in Booker T. Washington who visited the school several times while A.G. was a student. A.G. was so impressed by Mr. Washington that he periodically read his autobiography and would go on to name a number of his business ventures after him later in life. From school to work, A.G. would find himself in World War I, and though black soldiers were generally treated with disgrace, A.G. gained a sense of purpose through the experience. When he came home, he had land that he had bought with the money he had saved and a refined sense of self. However, despite his veteran status, A.G. experienced difficulty in the job market as economic hardships plagued the country during the onset of the Great Depression years. Recently married and wanting to retire his mother, A.G. took up work in the mines. Mine work was brutal and dangerous, similar to the railroad work A.G.'s father had succumbed to years before. It was during this time when A.G.'s entrepreneurship endeavors flourished. What started off as selling his wife's cooking to his co-workers turned into cash loans to his co-workers. With mine work came death, and many of A.G.'s co-workers lacked proper burial services. From insurance to funeral service, A.G. established the Booker T. Washington Burial Insurance Company. A.G. had shifted his entrepreneurial perspective from what he could sell to what the community had needed. Capitalizing on mentorship, A.G. would soon bring his father-in-law into the business. Abraham L. Smith owned a blacksmith shop in Meridian, Mississippi, and a man with his business expertise would only elevate A.G.'s businesses. Moving everyone to Birmingham, A.G. would name his funeral service business the Smith & Gaston Funeral Home. Despite growth in the company and despite the purchase of a mansion in Birmingham, serving as the headquarters of the business, A.G. lost his mother, father-in-law, and wife, Creola, before renovations of the building were complete. A.G. would remarry, and he and his second wife, Minnie, who was also an educator, would become a powerhouse in Birmingham. A.G. would open up the Booker T. Washington Business School, shaping young adults for the work world and bringing on many of his students as employees to his own company. As his businesses grew, so did his dedication to civilian affairs, particularly in education. He established a statewide spelling bee by 1965 with 100% of Birmingham schools participating in it. His involvement with the church brought him national acknowledgement as well. Coordinating the National Baptist Convention in the 1950s brought in another venture for A.G., the A.G. Gaston Motel. This led to A.G. expanding his real estate portfolio to such an extent that it created 3 more companies for him: a holding company for all his businesses, a construction company which built the homes of black folks in Birmingham, and the Citizens Federal Savings and Loan Association. Yes, a black man established a bank in the middle of the 1900s. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility. In come the civil rights years. Though A.G. wasn't on the front lines of demonstrations, he spared no expense to aid those who were. From bailing out jail protesters to housing civil rights activists and organizations in his motels, A.G. was aware of everything that was happening in Alabama, especially in Birmingham. When the young Dr. King came into the fold, and though there were differences in approach, A.G. made sure the burgeoning activist was taken care of. This teamwork was crucial, especially in 1963, as Birmingham saw a wave of violence. From the Mother's Day riot to the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, even A.G.'s home was bombed. Still, he pressed on. Later in the 60s, he would establish the A.G. Gaston Boys Club, intentionally putting positive black male figures, especially himself, in front of the young generations. He would go on to build a net worth of $130 million, and in typical A.G. fashion, he would equally shift ownership of all of his companies to his 350 longtime employees. Of course, his accomplishments, he would go on to say, "I had managed to overcome poverty, limited education, segregation, and discrimination to become a contributor to society with some national recognition. There are to be plenty of young people of today who could achieve far more than I had." Black Titan, A.G. Gaston and the Making of a Black Millionaire. Yet another rags to riches story of a man who gave his riches back to the community. Like if you enjoyed this segment, share if it could benefit others, subscribe for more book-related content. Till then, stay in the book and stay out the way.